Welcome everybody to our 125th webinar that we've done since we started these back in March of 2020, when the pandemic forced us all not to travel very much and do a lot of this training and support. And we're happy to have a special guest here this week. We often these are about technical, how to push this button, how to get this result out of the software and the hardware, different things like that. But we try to do a few nice, entertaining and fun webinars like this occasionally, and we have that this week. Kyle, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. No, it's a pleasure. Appreciate you all having me. And Roger, it's been a long time, so good to be back in video screen with you.
Exactly. We've done a little bit of work together way back, and then we stay in touch with texting and doing some different things. But the what I found interesting, and the reason that I asked you to come on, and Kyle agreed just almost immediately, everybody, and it was very, very thankful for that, is Kyle, of course, has got his motorsports career and doing what he does, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But what's the most intriguing thing for me is Kyle's son Brexton, 6 years old, I think, still 6, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, and has begun to do some racing on his own, and Kyle is using some of our hardware to do that, and to pass that trade along to the son, the family business, as it were, right? So and they've been putting some videos out, and we'll put some links to to Brexton's YouTube playlist of some of the stuff that Kyle and Samantha have put out, and so I've been watching along, and very, very well done, very fun. Probably, I assume you're doing it a little bit as entertainment, but it's as much of a historical record, right? You'll be able to go back and look at it later, and I bet you that'll be a good time.
Yeah, no question. Obviously, it's been really, really cool with the experience that we've had in getting Brexton's racing career started and kind of off the ground. And, I don't know that it would have really been possible. We talk about all the things that COVID has done wrong for us, but not much has been what COVID has done positive for us. So, with the world kind of shutting down, everybody was looking for something to do, as we were as well. And so it was actually, believe it or not, Samantha's idea, like, hey, you need to take Brexton out and get him out and go do something. So we went to the go-kart track and we got started, and he wanted to drive a couple times. And so we took that up, and he did well. He liked it. He enjoyed it, wanted to do it. And so we got our own cars and stuff. And so it's just been a learning experience since, and, trying to be patient as a dad, but yet also trying to be, a teacher, and one that can explain the ropes of what it takes to be competitive and to be fast in our world of motorsports, has certainly, come a long way. And that all started, man, that was a year and a half ago, I guess now. So he was just a little over 5, and, now he's 6.5. So it's been fun, and we've done a lot of stuff over the time in just the racetracks we've gone to, the cars that he's driven, and all the things that we've done. The familiar part of all of that has been the Micron unit and the AIM software.
And we'll get into a little bit more deeply in that. But when you started, what did you what age were you when you got into it?
Very late, considering today's world. So I was 13, and the first thing I started driving was Legends cars, and that was out in Las Vegas, Nevada. Actually, my home track in Las Vegas, they didn't allow me to race until I was 14, so I had to wait a little while there. But we traveled around, so we went to Salt Lake City, we went to California, we went to Arizona, we ran around in a couple other different tracks before Vegas was able to get their insurance policy changed where the 14-year-olds can run. So that's kind of how my start started.
Was Kurt already racing at that point, and then you just jumped in with a second Legend car? Is that how the family did it?
Yeah, kind of. So Kurt and I are 6.5 years different. So there's a lot of space there. Yeah. So when my brother started, he was 16, and he started in the dwarf cars. And so when he did all of that sort of stuff, he got going there, got into the limited late models, got into the modifieds, got into the late models, and he was racing late models, and was successful there, and getting into the Southwest Tour his rookie season, as I was starting to get my Legend car start. So, gotcha. He was competitive and winning races all over, and everything that we had, and everything that he was doing. And so then when I was, old enough, 13, I started testing those cars, and him and I, we ran against each other just briefly in test sessions for me to get acclimated to the cars and such. And then he was racing Southwest Tour while I started my season. And then there was a couple times where we ran together, probably, man, I'd say 3 or 5 times we raced against each other in Legends cars. And that was about it until we were both NASCAR.
Oh, and it all came back together later. The Legends cars, I have 2 sons, and both of them have raced, and one of them ran a year in a Bandolero and then a year in a family-owned Legend. And those Legends, they're animals. I raced off-road for about 20 years, and then I won a test day. I just jumped in the Legend. I was kind of pushing him to get on the throttle earlier, and he kept telling me, no, it won't do it. And no, yeah, well. And so I got in there and I did 3 or 4 laps, and I started to stand on it and just immediately looped it coming off the corner, right? And I said, well, okay, let me get going again. And when it started, when I just gave it a bunch of opposite lock, and it still spun and came back in, and he's like 14 at that point, right? And he just looked at me and goes, yeah, I told you, right?
Yeah.
There's not a lot of side grip on the rear grip at all on those cars when you're driving them. So they're a great training field for folks that are coming up. I certainly thought that as well. The back to your experience a little bit. When did you first start using data? When was it first introduced to you?
So data to me, I never really saw squiggly lines until I was in NASCAR. So it was one of my first probably Busch series test sessions when I was at Hendrick Motorsports. So that would have been back in 2003, 2004 timeframe, when I was first kind of getting into it. And we used the Pi system then. That's what we were using in that time frame. And it was pretty good. I mean, it was really good for my understanding, being first on the scene with it, and just kind of getting my understandings with it. But being able to kind of watch the guys run it and look at them and see what kind of buttons they were pressing and what they were doing. And then I could pretty much drive the machine myself on all the driver traits and, doing the overlays and looking at the compares and bringing up other drivers and things like that to be able to at least work it a little bit. So that was really unique for me and a good learning tool then.
Did you take a strong interest in it right away? Were you able to take some of that data away and look at it, or did you let the engineers? You were running a little bit, it sounds like, but did the engineers for the most part take care of that?
Yeah, no, they pretty much took care of it mostly. So I never had my own computer back then. It was always just kind of using the engineers' computers and being able to just kind of rummage through some of the data and look at some of that stuff while they were, doing another project or off looking at something else. They were obviously always using the simulation, as well as looking at the data in, chassis dynamics and things like that, where the front valance is or the splitter, and looking at the chassis heights and obviously shock travels and yaw sensors and all that sort of stuff. And then, I was always looking at kind of the driver overlays and driver traces and things. So just kind of using the computer while I had it in that time frame. So again, that was, the 2003-4 time frame. But then today it's vastly different. It's the whole world of SMT. You pretty much have to have a computer now and be integrated into that stuff and being able to watch it.
Just to step back and then come back to the SMT stuff. When 2003-4, when you're running these tests early on in your NASCAR career, you had other teammates that were there. Testing was so much more prevalent back then, right? You could do a lot of testing. And was that a big help for you, being able to have some of those other drivers and being able to see a little bit of what they were doing to help you get used to those cars?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think the biggest tool in that was obviously being able to look at the data, but of course too, seeing at that time I was teammates with Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Gordon, and being able to see how vastly different they drove from one another was a completely unique opportunity for me to kind of be young enough to look at it, see it, understand it, read it, but then kind of pick and choose, what attributes of those guys was best at particular racetracks. During that time frame, Jimmy Johnson was one of the sport's best at Charlotte Motor Speedway. I mean, just destroyed it. They even named it Lowe's Motor Speedway for a while, because he pretty much had it covered. And just understanding how free he could be, how loose he could drive the race car around there, and getting an understanding of what he was doing and how he could, keep the car stuck to the racetrack, but yet be fast while doing so. And so that was a big thing for me, and trying to understand that, and, seeing that, and then looking at like what Jeff Gordon was doing at Martinsville, for instance, and how dominant he was there, and how he would pick up things. And so, like you said, the testing back then was a lot more than what we've had the last few years. And so that was pretty helpful for me in my early days.
Couple of things on that is you were able to see right about you're going at oval track racing cars that are virtually the same, and you were able to see the difference in how people were driving these cars and getting, you know, remarkably close lap times. Probably a bit of a hump that you would hit to slow you down at first, right? Wow, yeah, everybody's doing different things. What should I do? Interesting how you were able to use data to get through that. But the bigger question is now with the SMT data, no testing, very little practice. What about the young guys coming up these days? I mean, I suppose they're leaning on sim racing or simulation stuff a lot more. It's got to be a lot harder for a young guy coming up.
It is. You look at some of the truck series stuff, and like last year, some of the rookies that come in, I mean, no practice, just literally show up, get in the truck and go race. That's really difficult for somebody to kind of get used to a racetrack and get used to a truck. I mean, trucks are really, really different than anything you've driven coming up through the ranks. If you're a late model driver, super late model driver, into ARCA, or even if you're an open wheel guy coming into trucks, I mean, they're just so big, so heavy, so boxy that, learning how they feel is a big important tool. And not having that, guys have had to obviously lean on different forms of what they can do to learn that and understand that. And iRacing will only take you so far. I mean, yes, it is a tool. You just have to figure out what similarities there are. Obviously, there's such a difficult challenge in the tire model, and being able to put that into sim and have that correlate and feel exactly like real life all the time. Not to mention the vehicle dynamics and the chassis dynamics, and of course the aerodynamics, that all have to be manually human entered into a algorithm or program to have it give you an understanding while you're driving it. So that's a big task for all these young drivers. So what do they do? What do they go to? What do they look at? Well, it's film, just old standard, watch video, watch races, kind of listen to the in cars and see what drivers are doing. And then, the SMT stuff, honestly, the truck series guys, they don't have that. But SMT has come along a little bit in Xfinity. It's not great. It's not perfect. But obviously the cup guys at the cup level, I feel like they've, I wouldn't say they're spoiled, but with SMT, what it is today, I mean, you're getting real-time live data of what drivers are doing and their throttle traces, brake traces, steering traces, and so speed traces, RPM, all that sort of stuff. And a couple of years ago when they announced the SMT data coming out, I was a huge antagonist to it, because I was like, why give all these young guys just free opportunity to see what the stars of the sport have developed over years of learning and just hand it away. But obviously with the track time kind of going down and the practice going away, I feel like there's a little bit of how it's evened out. It's not all the practice and all the SMT for those guys. It's now, kind of give or take a little bit.
Yeah. I was going to ask, we had Larry McReynolds on here, gosh, 3 or 4 weeks ago, and we talked a lot about SMT data because I didn't understand it fully. And is that data available for you and the teams after events?
So the SMT data is live on any session. So if there's a practice session going on, it's live. You can look at it right then and there. You can pick particular laps. You can watch the lines. It has like a computer generated overview of where the cars are on the racetrack. You can look at it and watch what lines guys are running. And then again, that's per session. So qualifying, practice, racing, whatever. And then afterwards, it's stored into the cloud. It's stored into a library that you can go back and look at it anytime you want to and utilize that. And the library is growing, ever since it started. They continue to just add to it. So it's 3 years old now. So you can go back from races 3 years ago and pick up Kyle Larson's lap at Chicagoland Speedway and look at it, even though we don't go to Chicagoland anymore. Or, Atlanta's a completely new repave. So is that data any relevant? Probably not, but looking at these places that don't really change a whole lot over the years, there's a lot of value in that.
Certainly from the first race to often you run these tracks twice in a year, right? So I'm sure your engineers and the larger race teams are poring over that data I would guess.
They do. And what's interesting is, like you said, the engineers back at the shop, they spend hours, days looking at stuff. And just a little while ago, we had one of our engineers. He did a whole study on some stuff with some of the guys and what they were doing on restarts. And he would pull videos or snippets, clips of the SMT data, and he would send it over to us and we would watch it. I mean, I don't know, I think it was 12 emails in a row or something like that of just information and just blow your mind type stuff of what's going on and what guys are doing. Whether it's, coming into the restart box or after the restart, coming off of turn 2, and obviously with this 550 package in the draft and what all that is, it really lends itself to utilizing the cars around you to build speed. And so how to do that, it was a big learning experience for sure.
Interesting. So they're working on that driver performance side and trying to help you get you and all the rest of the guys obviously get to continue to get
They probably
better.
don't believe we're smart enough to look at any of that or we'll take the time to do that. And so they're going to give it to us and say, no excuses.
Just keep feeding it to you either way, right?
Yeah.
No doubt. I listen to without the travel and everything. I watch the races and I have the scanner information, and I hear some of the spotters talking about, especially the restarts. That's an area that the driver can make a difference, right? And on that early when everybody's cramped all together, and I hear about especially on the longer tracks, and they talk about the line, just a little bit of movement, and your spotter will say that line is the line. It's got momentum or something. Some terms they use, and it's amazing. And yeah, there's just that's an area that can be improved upon, obviously, or continue to. The going back to Brexton, he started racing these what looks like carts, right? And the carts with a cage though, and they you started running that, what is a beginner box stock, and maybe started in the cadet class and moved up fairly quickly.
That's right. Yeah,
what kind of cars are
they're
they?
called outlaw carts. They're basically go-karts, but they're built to just go left, run on dirt. Although they use very similar components to what many are accustomed to in the WKA world with left and right carts.
Yeah, exactly. Why the decision to go dirt oval versus GoPro Motorplex or Bandolo or whatever? There's a lot of choices out there. Why'd you do the dirt oval?
The biggest thing was age. So,
okay.
Him being 5, he was allowed to run at 5 years old and to run the oval stuff, run the dirt stuff. And the other thing to that is we're still going to run some offhanded stuff with the road racing carts and things like that. And then we're also going to run some quarter midget stuff and on pavement. And so I feel like my biggest thing for him in this day and age, in this world, and what we're seeing in the NASCAR schedule is diversity. I mean, you have to be good at dirt, you have to be good at road course, you have to be good at pavement. So I feel as though putting him in everything and never letting him learn too many bad habits in particular forms of motorsports. You can go run, let's just say, dirt cars, you can run micros, you can run midgets, you can learn all the things that you need to know to make those go fast. But some of that stuff is not going to be the same thing that makes you go fast on pavement. So you've got to stay true to both worlds and understand the diversity in being able to drive both of those and the characteristics of the vehicles that you have to drive. So that's my thought process anyways. Whether it's right, whether it's wrong, I think we'll find out here in about 20 years, and I'll let you know then.
Maybe 15, right? I think you're right. I think just look at your form of motorsports, NASCAR. It's like you said, it's been a lot of oval stuff, obviously, but more and more road racing all the time, certainly, and then the dirt that you guys have done a little bit as well. Do you like? Are you a fan as a driver? Do you look forward to the road course stuff compared to the ovals?
I do. Years ago, my brother kind of taught me this, was we only had 2. You had Sonoma and you had Watkins Glen. So you kind of treated them like off weeks, like they were fun, like they were just something else that you got to go do. And when I was a kid growing up in Las Vegas, we ran the whole pavement schedule of Legends cars. And then they threw in maybe 8 or so dirt races that we got to go do. And then we had a winter road racing series, and the winter stuff was really fun. You know, we got to go out there and run probably 6 or 8 events on the road courses, whether it be the inside of the Las Vegas Motor Speedway or the outside track at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And so I always just took that as kind of off-season fun, you know, and I took that same mindset into the NASCAR world, where it's like an off weekend. We're just going to go have fun, see if we can do good and get the results that we can out of this. But like you said, now how competitive our sport is and has become, everybody's gotten better at the road course racing. There are no more road course ringers that come in, say, you know, Juan Pablo or Robbie Gordon or Boris Said or Ron Fellows, those types of guys. Everybody's good at it. You know, the regular guys are winning at it. So it makes it a heck of a lot harder to think of it as an off weekend, where now those points are important. And, you know, instead of having just 2 on the schedule, I think now there's like 5 or 6. So a lot more points at those events to be had if you're good at it.
I remember the one race you came back from your injury and you won, I think, Sonoma.
It was Sonoma,
yeah, that was that was crazy. That was something that obviously a fun track. You'd done well there before, but that was a bit of a crazy circumstance. So the back to Brexton's card, what has been most helpful in the data as you've been running and he's learning, and what have you been using? You know, we used that, I showed that picture a little bit earlier, you looking at a Micron 5 on the card after one of his events. What kind of data do you use the most?
Yeah. So with us, the biggest thing early on was just, you know, using it for lap times. Obviously, you know, being a dad and sitting there and watching your kid, watching the car going around the racetrack, I forget to hit the stopwatch button, you know? So I had that problem. And then the second problem being a dad is you have dad lap time. So like one time you'll look at it and it's like 2/10 faster and you're thinking, oh, cool, we're fast, you know, but that's the dad thumb, you know, it goes too fast. So biggest thing was lap times. And then we kind of got into the drops of what the drops meant and him being in the gas, out of the gas and all that sort of stuff. And then coming to the understanding that, okay, man, like these cars are slow enough, they have enough grip that you can run wide open around the racetrack. I need you to run wide open. And so the driver would tell you you were running wide open, but you know damn well he wasn't. So then we had to call upon our buddy Roger to send us out, you know, the magnetic pieces for telemetry on putting throttle and brake trace on there, as well as we went ahead and did the steering as well too. But then we got the driver to run around the racetrack wide open and keep the gas down, but he learned also that he could drag the brake in order to slow himself back down and get him to the speed that he was comfortable with. So now we're showing him that he's wide open on throttle, but dragging the brake. So data never lies. That's what the engineers tell me, is data never lies. So I'm using the data completely against my 6-year-old, but it worked. And, you know, now him seeing that, understanding that, in the beginning, he dreaded it. He hated it because I had it on him, you know, and now when we come off the racetrack, he wants to see it. And when we were able to then put the data on to the videos with the Smarty Cam, that was a game changer. That right there was huge for us, because now we're watching him in traffic. We can see what he does and how he predicts his line and how he predicts the traffic and how he rolls out of the gas to plan a pass, or how he might be running a guy down and he doesn't know that he's using the brake, but then he gets close and he starts using the brake a little bit because he likes to have that comfort gap of someone in front of him, you know. And this was earlier, you know, now he's getting better at chasing a guy down, passing a guy, but all of those things, I mean, it's kind of gone in an evolution of what we're doing with it and what we're using it for, and, you know, what things we're adding to it. But then just being able to see the data. I'm using it for gear changes. You know, I'm watching the track and how the track changes and what the track goes through. And then looking at, you know, the RPM range and what RPMs we want to be in. And if he's on a good lap, a wide open lap by himself, if the RPM's good, okay, the gear is probably good. But if he's going to get in traffic, I'm going to need to gear up one, because he's going to need, you know, more pep when he has to breathe it a little bit in the middle of the turns and such. So there's a lot. I mean, I could probably go on for another few minutes of just the things that we do, but there's so much tool there. And what's interesting to me is how he dreaded it at the beginning, but now Brexton is good with wanting to see it. He's like, Dad, show me, like, what did I do? What can I do better? How was it? And he's understanding the squiggly lines. I'm showing him like this one here is steering, this one here it's throttle, it's flat, you can't really see nothing, but we look at the RPM and we look at his steering and how much, if he turns the steering wheel too far, it cuts the speed down.
Exactly.
And so he's seeing that, and he's 6 years old. And to me, the way I see it with what we've got going on in NASCAR right now, he's going to have data the rest of his life. Yeah. So to have him see that, understand that, use that now is going to be way beneficial for him down the road.
And buy into it. That's the bigger thing, right? And I work with young kids. I work with adults that are just getting into this. And that step of trying to make excuses for it to buying into it and using it as a positive, that is a large step for a lot of different people. And it's kind of cool that he's bought into it fairly quickly. I think the younger ones do buy into it more quickly. And it's your approach, right? It's the parents' approach, obviously, as well. You're not using it as a hammer. You're using it, say, hey, this is a tool for you to go faster, right? And it comes to them fairly quickly. You talked about the difference between the data and the video. Did you start off with more video? Is he a kind of a graphical kid at first, and then that got him to buy into it? Because I know you were putting the throttle position graphics right on it, and the RPM and the speed and all of that. How did you kind of tie those two together?
Well, at first we were just using, straight up Micron 5, no data or anything, with a GoPro, and that the GoPro obviously will only get you so far. So then, we got the data on there, but for a 6-year-old to understand what he's looking at on a lap and having data to look at in squiggly lines wasn't really working. Yeah. So the best thing was the Smarty Cam with the data, where you can see the green and the red for the throttle and the brake on going out or coming in or being wide open, and what lines he was running. And so that's huge. And being able to just sit there on the computer and pause it at the beginning of a corner and show him and talk to him and explain to him what he's setting up, what he's looking at, and then go through in slow-mo or back up in slow-mo and just kind of be like, see, this is what you're doing, and having him remember those things, or at least take a visual to, trying to put it together as a 6-year-old best I can with, okay, I'm seeing a lot of green, or I'm seeing a little bit of green, I'm not catching the guy in front of me, that sort of stuff. So that's when the light bulb really went off, was when we were able to get full data as well as the Smarty Cam going.
I think for young drivers, either they're so visual. Kids are such a look, see, do, right? And yeah. once they see something that that's the way it. Oh, look at that, and you were able to point it out to them probably. Boy, right. Look at when you arced it in correctly, and you didn't you didn't touch the brake or whatever it happens to be, and you use the entire track, and boom, look at your speed coming out 2 miles an hour more or whatever it happened to be, right? And that's then right. The kids are so good at that look, see, do thing that it's then the data makes sense. That's how it was for me too when I first got into this. I had to learn. I'm a visual learner kind of a guy. I have to see it, play with it, right, and make sure I get. Oh, now I understand it. Let's go. So very, very cool. What others? You mentioned you threw steering on it already. Is there you've pretty much maxed out the ability for a Micron 5, right? It's an entry level data gauge, and you're using it. Well, there's a couple more things we can probably do in the future. What kind of things are you thinking you might want to have information on? Is there any engine stuff? Is there any kart stuff? Are you really still focusing on the driver side?
Yeah, I mean, with where we're at right now in the vehicle that we're at right now with the karts, I feel like we've got what we need. I think one of the other things that's really, really cool and unique about the Micron 5S is the ability in being able to utilize the predictive lap timer and have the lights at the top show up green. There's 5 of them there that'll show, okay, you're really way better this lap, or red if you're a little bit worse on this lap. And so with him, I don't know at what age kids' cognitive brain processes get really going. I'm thinking it's around 9 or 10. So he's really young for that. But this year we're going to turn the Micron a little bit where he can see the progressive lap times on whether or not he's better or worse on a lap and being in traffic. My thing to him in what he's been able to do in a junior sprint, because the junior sprint, the Micron is mounted right on the dash, right at the steering wheel, right at the top of the dash, right where he's kind of like looking out. So his peripheral can see those green lights. And I tell him, I'm like, chase the green lights. If you don't have green lights, you're not going hard enough. You're not going fast enough. Even in traffic, chase the green lights. And so that's going to be the biggest thing for us. We're going to move his Micron a little bit for his kart racing this year to where he can see it, and hope that kind of, helps him in traffic and gives him a good sense of what he needs to do better on this year, and in being able to pick up spots and pick up that. So that's the biggest thing probably coming in now. But as we get more into the junior sprints, or even like micros and that sort of stuff, there's going to be an array of engine data for sure. We do utilize the RPM range on restarts and stuff for adjusting our clutches and making sure our clutches are in the right space for the RPM range that the motor is. So we're doing some of that stuff already as well, being on the crew chief side, not the driver coach side.
I agree with you. I think a lot of dads in that form of motorsport, the dirt oval, want that gauge out of the driver's vision. And I think even, gosh, 5-10 years ago, I believe it was even a rule. I think they've relaxed that. But you go to the sprint kart tracks, GoPro Motorplex or wherever, and all of the drivers have that in front of them.
Yeah, it's
And
right on the steering wheel.
yeah, and I think the drivers are so much better than what maybe some of these officials give them credit for. They can handle, they're not looking down at it, or if they are, they need to be taught not to do that, right? It's the peripheral that they really want to be looking at. And I think you're heading the right way. There's always that thing that it's going to help him a ton because of that carrot, right? You always having that carrot out there, something to strive for. And
There are different
when he does
rules.
do something,
Like you said, yeah, there are different rules at different tracks
yeah,
and different series and things like that. I think one of them too is quarter midget racing. I think you have to have it outside the cockpit.
Yep.
They can't see it. And then I think also you either have to tape over it or something, so it's not blinding to the drivers behind you. So there's all kinds of different things that are going on with that. So we'll do whatever the rules allow us to do and utilize the tools that we can.
It is little league racing at some level, right? That we do have parents involved, and I know especially after dark, some of especially the quarter midgets, they were turning those things around and then turning the shift lights to flash at the end of the straightaway every time, just to bug the people that were behind them. So then the rule came up, you had to tape over them, and and on and on and on it goes, right?
Yeah, that's right.
The driver position on the track, as we kind of talk about a little bit of continuing on with the driver improvement, you mentioned the Micron 5S. It has a new GPS sensor in it, and that new GPS sensor at 25 samples per second is as good a quality as virtually any other data system that's out there. The Motec stuff and all of that. And have you been able to begin to place where he's at on multiple laps, and when he goes low, when he goes high, track changes, chasing speed, and use that as a driver tool?
Yep. Yes, we do that. And actually, what's really helpful in that as well is when we have one of his buddies that they're same size. The other guy is 2.5 years older than him, but he can still fit in his car and drive his car. So having him drive, getting his data, which again, the throttle trace is wide open, brake trace is 0, but you can look at steering, and then you can look at the GPS overlay lap on the data and be able to look at higher entry, lower exit, making the track round, that sort of stuff. So those are definitely some tools that we do utilize as well in, the testing days and driver coaching days. When it's Brexton versus Brexton, a good lap, he's pretty good now at being able to make good laps. We call them just make qualifying laps. Just go out there and make qualifying laps, and then we talk about when he's in a race, it's called racecraft. Let's work on your racecraft laps and what you got to do in order to race. So those are the things that we worked on last year a little bit when he had a test buddy that came out and ran with him.
They're all race cars are momentum race cars, right? In effect, and these things are even more that way, right? They got pretty good sized tires and not a ton of horsepower, and flat to the floor the entire time. So boy, any extra turn or not being smooth just kills the speed, certainly.
Yes.
The couple more things about you and Brexton and running. You obviously are away for weekends, and you miss some of his races. The you're able to hustle home and work it around as best you can. But how do you handle that when you're not there? Obviously, a lot of cell minutes are burnt up, but how mentally, how do you handle him racing?
Well, the biggest thing is I have a crew guy who will handle all of Brexton's stuff for me while I'm not, well, even when I am there. I let him handle it because there's times where, like you said, I'm not going to be there. So somebody needs to be able to be taking care of this stuff and having the opportunity to just know what it takes and what needs to happen if I'm not around. So Greg is his name. And so Greg will be able to run all the data for me. He can download the data, he can put it all and upload it all, and I can be able to view it. So for instance, when he gets done with qualifying or a heat race, he'll download the Smarty Cam and we'll upload it straight into Dropbox. And then I can go into Dropbox and I can view it before Brexton and make suggestions to them over the phone before Brexton gets back on the racetrack for the next time. So those things have really been useful while I'm away. Now, if we're both racing at the same time and I'm in a 400 miler, that's not going to happen, but the other occasions do happen and where we're able to still kind of talk and do the driver coaching and helping from afar. So that's been really helpful.
And you not only have Brexton, but from watching the videos, at least on the YouTube page, your father's there quite a bit, and Samantha, I suppose, is there if you can't be there, or does she travel with you more?
Yeah, no, Samantha's going to be with Brexton more times than not. She won't let him go to the racetrack without one of us being there. So
there you go.
yeah, she'll mostly be there for him. And like you said, my dad's always there. So third generation now with Brexton racing. And then Greg's been really good at helping Brexton get through some of his tutelage and helping him through what it takes to keep going and getting better.
Worked I chat with Greg, text or chat with him occasionally, and he's a sharp guy. He obviously is doing a very good job for what you're doing. In one of your videos you talked about Brexton's first crash, and how talk us through that a little bit, and the family. It's your kid out there, right? And while you understand it, and things happen, but what was going through your head?
Well, what was really interesting, I'm going to back up for a second. So I know which one you're talking about, but when he first started, he was trying to figure out the loose, and he was getting out of the gas and this and that, and trying to learn how to drive a car sideways on dirt a little bit. And so one of the things that he did was, he would overcorrect the steering wheel, and he hooked right and ran head on into the front stretch wall. And I did the exact same thing when I was 15 testing a super late model in Las Vegas. Was I was getting used to the car, getting it up to speed, trying to feel out a little bit loose off the corner, and those cars have 3 inches of stagger, whatever they had back then. And so, I did the same thing. I got a little too sideways. I breathed it out of the gas a little bit, and that thing hooked right, and I slammed the fence. And so I was like, well, like father, like son. So that was the first crash. And, took a little bit of getting back into it after that one to get his comfort back built up, get his confidence back built up. But the one you're speaking of was an incident in an A main. He didn't have a good night qualifying, so we started deep in the field, and he was on the inside row. A guy in front of him turned off into the corner. The guy in front of him spun out, and so the guy in front of Brexton then, avoided the wreck, and that guy was just facing the wrong way and was right in Brexton's lap. No time to react, and he smacked into him head on and broke the car and stuff like that. Banged his knee and hurt his feelings and his pride and everything like that. But that was a big lick. But having all the video and stuff like that we had, there was a way that was a learning moment. That was a teaching moment as well too, of just understanding traffic and what happens in kids and where you're looking and what you can see and trying to do on those starts. It's tough for anybody, but even for a 6-year-old to kind of work through that stuff. And so it took us about a month for him to regain his composure and his pride on that one. But that was the the first real big lick that he had, and just, try and make sure he was okay. That was the biggest thing, and I could see him moving the whole time, and he was okay, but he was banged up, and like I said, feelings were hurt, but he come off the track, and I was like, if as long as you're okay, we can make new cars. That's not a problem. So he felt all right, and we got back going I think the next week.
And mom has been around the sport long enough that she was able to overcome it, even though that's the baby.
Yeah, she
took a little longer for mom.
Well, I'm always at the top of the grandstands filming, even though we have in-car stuff. I still do out-car stuff. And she can't watch and film at the same time. She has not figured that out. So as soon as she saw that, I don't even know how she got on the racetrack as fast as she got on the racetrack, but she was running across over there to make sure he was okay. So fortunately everything was all good, but she was there to take care of him.
Yeah, and with the video and with the data that sometimes these things are just going to happen, and he just needs to get that into his head too, right? I mean, or learn from it that could you have seen through it, seen it coming, understand the chips as they're falling, and find a way out, but you can't always. So it's good for him to learn to both.
Right, you can't always, but I mean, I think it wasn't that one, but there was another instance later where he got blitzed on a start, and a kid got on the inside of him, so he was middle 3 wide, and then there was a spin in front of him in the corner, and he saw the spin happening, and he was able to kind of avoid it. He barely touched the guy, but we were still able to continue in that event. But in that one, like, that was okay, dude, like, you got put in a bad spot because you got blitzed on the start. Like, we've got to figure out how to work on your starts, work on your timing, be up the guy in front of you's butt, pull out on the guy in front of you instead of you getting pulled out on, and try to make a move to the bottom and make a pass that you never even would have been in that lane where that guy spun out. You would have been way below it and beneath it and been gone, So a lot of those instances of just teaching moments, learning, and figuring all this out.
I've always, ever since I got deep into data and started to watch these things, people will ask, well, here's the site of the spin or the wreck or the whatever happened. And when they asked me to help them look at the data, we go, they're focusing on the incident. And I always go back like 5 seconds and start working my way up to it, because that's when it all started, right?
Yeah.
I remember a quote from Richard Petty years and years ago, and he said something to the effect of, he says, I hit the wall in 4, but the wreck really started in, when I entered 3. It just was a matter of time, right?
Yeah,
and that always stuck
right
with me. And then when I got into data, I started to look at this, and you're having trouble on exit. Well, let's look at your entry, right? Because that's where it all starts.
Oh, and the best thing with a 6-year-old is he ran into me. And I'm like, no, he didn't run into you. Let's go back to the other corner where you had a piss poor corner and didn't get through there very good. And you gave him the chance to run into you.
So there's this, a very, very experienced dad at this kind of a thing, and sharing knowledge, and that's super beneficial to him. But it's also, there isn't a whole lot of dad, it's okay, Junior, yeah, I didn't see anything wrong with that either, right? Or something, you know how to read what's going on. So interesting stuff. Let's take a couple of questions as we got about 4 or 5 minutes left here. Can you compare, Jeff Wasilko asked, can you compare your use of data as a driver versus your son? You've talked about that a little bit, but how much time do you spend looking at data or something on your own self versus him, or is it a lot of verbal with him?
Yeah, so for me, I'll go through the week and I'll look at race video and some stuff like that. And if I see particular moments in the race video, I'll pull up the SMT and kind of see how it happened, what set that up, was it 3 laps before, like we're talking about, back it up and see how somebody got there. So I do that. And then, obviously in our world, you look at guys getting out of the gas. How do they use the gas? Are they using the brake? What are they using the brake for? That sort of stuff. And then how, mostly with our stuff, it's about manipulating traffic, how to work through traffic, which, yeah, same thing for Brex, I guess, like we've been talking about a little bit of. But the biggest thing with him is letting him see the video right after it happens, letting him kind of remember what happened, what he did, kind of burn it into his mind a little bit more, good or bad, whatever it might have been. If it was a great heat race, let him watch a great heat race. It works both ways. And so it's very similar. And actually some of the stuff that I've looked at in his data and how I'm teaching him about reviewing it, looking at it, seeing it, I've kind of taken that teacher mindset to myself a little bit when I'm doing some of my own. In, okay, if I'm teaching myself, if I'm standing over here gabbing in my own ear, what am I saying to myself, you know? So I have done that, and I feel like that's been beneficial. So honestly, some of Brexton's stuff's come off on mine.
Yeah, Wednesday night I was telling him this, and look at what I'm doing. I
Yeah,
can't believe, look
exactly.
at
I yelled at my kid for the same thing. Now I got to
damn
yell at
thing.
myself.
Get your act together, right? Oh
Yep.
well.
Yep.
Chris Stifler asks, what do you feel is Brex's strongest driving trait as a 6-year-old? Chris coaches a lot of young kids in karts, and he sees those traits as they develop. What do you see as one of his strongest points?
Okay. You know, when he's he's really fast. He can make great time by himself. When we're at a test, he runs really good. When he's out in the lead, he drives away. Like he's really good at being able to put together his laps, how he wants to make his laps. And so what's interesting about that is sometimes you put a rabbit out in front of a kid and they'll go chase a rabbit. And I don't know that Brexton needs a rabbit to go chase sometimes, which is good. I feel like that's a good trait.
Strong.
Now you put somebody out in front of him and yeah, he'll try to go run them down. That's not a problem, but he still has that comfort gap that he likes when he sees someone in front of him. So what I mean by that is, let's say he's 5 lengths behind a guy and he's running him down, and he gets to 1 length behind a guy. Well, now he's kind of like breathing the throttle a little bit because he wants that guy to overslip or make a big mistake for him to make the pass easy.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's what we're working on right now, is just his comfort in being able to not door slam a guy, but get in there and mix it up a little bit. You know, you can touch, you can race, like it's okay to do that sort of thing. And, you know, some of the not so good moments on that last year was he started to build his confidence on that. And he drives off into turn 3 and hits a guy and spins him out. Well, that's not the way we're trying to do these things, you know, and
too
so
far
that's,
on it.
there's a fine line, and you're trying to teach that and have a 6-year-old understand that. So, but like I said, the great trait is fast is fast. He can make fast.
You go. The racing is going fast and racing is racing, right? And it's two different pieces of the same coin, right? Sometimes it's hard to, the last thing that comes is that racing part. The other thing I see a lot with juniors, and I haven't watched any of Brexton's video a ton, but they're always sneaking a peek down to the inside going into the corner, right? And then it ends up, if you don't make the move, now all of a sudden you're turning a tighter radius and they're killing you coming off the corner. And you need to get out there and set up the exit as much as always taking a sniff down entering into the corner. Is Brex training on any sort of sim rigs at all? Do you have him run? Is he doing it for fun? Is he having some fun with it, or does he do it to learn anything?
Yeah, a little bit. We've got him an iRacing rig. So he's been on the iRacing stuff just a little bit. I had to call in a couple favors to get him an account set up, so we didn't make a fake one. Yeah, he's been running a little bit. So his junior sprint stuff, first time he ever got in a car was out in California. He ran a 3-day show. It was a national event, and he did really, really good for his age and everybody around him. First time in it, he ran 9th. And then we took him to the next race, and he got to the lead, led for a little bit, and then made a mistake, got passed and faded. And then we got the car out to North Carolina here and worked on it some, and then just went and tested. Like, we just went to every track. I just wanted to go to every different racetrack that we could. Well, as you all know, we were getting ready for the Tulsa Shootout, and the Tulsa Shootout, that track doesn't exist year round. You know, so where can you see it year round besides iRacing? That's it. And so I stuck them on iRacing, and just to learn and see, you know, to see the berm on the infield, to kind of see the extremities of where the wall is and stuff like that. And just to kind of try to figure out how to burn some laps there and feel the track. And one of the tracks that we got to go test at was the exact same size, but it never slicks off like Tulsa does. So that was some really, really important testing and some time learning there and getting him ready for that.
You got to race in it as well at the shootout, and I saw a tweet, I think, that you answered by somebody, I don't remember exactly, but you talked about the level of skill of some of these guys that are out and run only dirt, and somebody was picking on you for going down and trying to grab a couple of wins or something, and you pushed back pretty quickly, and these guys are really good at what they do. And did you have a good time at the shootout, and something you might want to do a little bit more of in the future?
I did. Yeah, I had a great time. I thought it was really, really fun. The level down aspect of motorsports is not always right. It doesn't correlate. The dirt racers are the top of the world of dirt racing, and I've always looked at super late model racing. Everybody always asks, well, why do you have a super late model team? Why do you like to go do that? It's like, I like to go racing against the best of the best across the country, guys that may never have the opportunity to go race NASCAR. They're one of the top name guys from the Northeast, Mike Rowe. He's, I don't know, 68 years old now or whatever, but I ran with him back in 2005, and that dude was on it. I mean, he is badass at Oxford, Maine. And so he was really fun to race against. Junior Hanley was fun to race against. Scotty Hance from Indiana, Bubba Pollard from the South, all these guys that Derek Thorne from out West, you get to race against some of these guys, and they're the best of the best. I mean, you're going up against Derek Thorne, who won, 18 of 20 races in the Southwest Tour. And we ran the Bull Ring Vegas, my home track, together. That was 2 years ago. And I beat him just barely, but that shows you the competition that you have in this country in different forms of motorsports. So that's what I call it. It's different forms of motorsports. And to be able to just go out there and diversify yourself a little bit, have some fun while doing it. You're not always going to be the best at every one of them, but to just go out there and learn and try to pick the traits that you can to familiarize yourself of what makes that vehicle go fast and try to make it go fast.
And it's not just good for you, it's good for the groups you're racing with, right? It gives them something to target and to put themselves against, and they can tell when they're out there with you if you're struggling with your car, and they know if it's the car or if it's you when you're racing together at the time, right? It's good for everybody when somebody like you goes and races that or the truck series or wherever you go. So I've always found it to be positive. You have some charity work that you do that I wanted to kind of touch on before we go out, and it's the Kyle and Samantha Busch Bundle of Joy Fund. Give us a little bit about what you do with that. I'm always impressed with what some of folks like you do and things like this, and tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, thanks. So back in 2013, 14, my wife and I were trying to have our son Brexton, and we weren't successful at it. So we went to see the doctors, and they laughed at us and said, "You guys aren't never going to make a baby together." So a bit derogatory at first, but we went through the science on it and tried to figure out why, and we got some answers. So that was helpful, and went through IVF, and that's how our son Brexton was born. And so we had a charity before then that we had worked with other kids and kids that were in homes for no doing of their own, just bad situations and stuff. But when we had the opportunity to kind of change our directive a little bit with the IVF world, that really struck home. Obviously, we had lived that personally, and so that was really something that was important to us to give back to the community of those that were struggling in the same thing. And people may not always realize this or understand this, but Samantha's a huge advocate for it. But infertility, the PCOS, it's a disease, but it's not really classified as a disease. So she's been able to kind of spread the word on that, but also we've been working with insurance companies and other things, because the price that it takes to go through one round of IVF is $25,000, and that doesn't even guarantee you a child at the end. So it's very pricey, and we've been fortunate enough to go through it ourselves and have our son Brexton. We're pregnant through a surrogate for this one, our second one being a girl, but this is our 7th try. So we're only going to be 2 for 7, and so that's really expensive for general Americans or the general public, and being able to go to these clinics. And so to date, we've helped, I think 58 couples. We've got 38 babies born, and we've donated over $1 million. And so we're really happy with the way the foundation has grown and the legs that it's taken. And, it's really fun to see the IVF community through the BOJ, the Bundle of Joy. We've created a Facebook group for everybody, and they're all friends, and they talk, and their kids go to school together, and they hang out together. And, you know, it's not just something that you get a check and it ends. You know, we all have group days that we get together and have fun with all the kids, and just kind of reminisce that, you know, with everyone, and see how all the kids are doing and growing up. And now many of the other families are, you know, 2 kids in, 3 kids in, whatever it is. And it's funny how it works. You know, there was one couple, for instance, that had to go through IVF. They had their first child, and then they weren't even really trying, but they had all the stress and the doubt and the mindset out of their head, and they got pregnant naturally with the second one, you know. So it's crazy the way the world works, and sometimes how God works. But you know, that's what we got. And it's been fun to see that grow and be successful.
I know many successful folks like you are have charities and do some different things, but this one is this one is different. It's everlasting, right? I mean, you totally have changed people's lives. Not just you know, help is good, but this is, you know, totally changing these families' lives, obviously. So, you know, congratulations on that, and I'm glad you're doing that. I hope you are able to keep doing that. So, I'm going to reshare my screen here real quickly if I can do it. Sometimes I get overwhelmed by the technology, right? No, we're recording this one, obviously, and we always take all of these webinars that we do. A lot of them are informational, but some of these are fun like this, and just chatting about different things. And we place them onto our YouTube site. We have over 190 videos up there now. Everybody, if you're watching this live or you're watching this later, make sure you check out some of the other videos that are on there. Tons of great information that all of these webinars, plus many other videos that we've put together. So a lot of information out there. We always like to say that AIM is a customer support company that happens to sell racing electronics. All of you that are watching, if you have some questions or any other needs, make sure you give us a call at the 800 number there. Look for us out at the track. We've got these Sprinter vans that we get them to every event that we can, but we'll either do that or we'll have people walking around and with backpacks, or and if that doesn't work for you, just give us a call during the week, and we'll make sure we take care of you. Very important to us. What are we going to do next week? We have another webinar this coming week. Our good friend Matt Romanowski is going to be joining us, and what we're going to talk about is Race Studio 3 analysis is getting closer and closer to becoming production software. And so we thought what we would do is we would take a little bit of time. There has been some changes in the beta with some of the different you know, buttons and functions, and some different things that have just been continually improved. So we're going to go through the data import process and the user interface. And we're going to just chat about the different things and make a video that hopefully people can go back and look to and pick up some of the different things they need as they're continue to learn the new Race Studio 3 analysis software. So with that, Matt will be joining us a week from today, January 18th, and we'll have a great time as usual with Matt. So always end this kind of with a contact information. There's some websites that Kyle, we didn't even get into talking about the Rowdy energy drink, but you had the hat on, so we did good, right?
No,
so,
don't worry about it. It's all good.
And you have all the social media stuff. I think they've linked them into the chat box, and I will link them into the description of the YouTube once it gets placed up a little bit later today. Anything else you'd like to kind of add as we're closing down?
No, just appreciate the time, Roger, and thanks everyone for joining in. You know, hopefully some of that was helpful, useful of what we do and how we do it. I'm sure there's more ways and better ways and different ways, and I'm certainly going to be open ears to many of the other dads that are out there that are coaching their own sons into you know, racing stardom. So again, thanks for all of your help as well, and being able to get us the systems that we need, and look forward to continuing the development of that in the software ways. And yeah, we'll be in touch.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming. It's a learning curve for everybody. It's you know, it's fun to hear that you're actually taking some of it and applying it towards your own racing as well. It's been great fun. Look forward to continuing to work with Greg, especially. You know, we'll have to send him a note and have him watch this a little bit later, right? So, but he's a good guy. Glad you have him. Thanks again, everybody. We appreciate everybody coming. Look forward to seeing everybody next week, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks all.
Thank you. Thank you.